This may be something you've never heard before. A simple gesture like a hug can evoke complex emotional responses in older men, carrying deeper and more profound meanings than you might expect. I'm Vernon, and today we're diving into the hidden emotions and deeper meanings behind something as simple as a hug. The 4 truths I'm going to share with you today aren't what you'd expect, and they certainly aren't what most older men would ever admit out loud. But understanding them could be the key to deeper, more meaningful connections with every man over 60 in your life. More importantly, they could show you how to offer something that older men desperately need but rarely know how to ask for. Before we dive in, I encourage you, don't forget to subscribe my channel and hit the notification, because sometimes the most important wisdom comes from understanding the emotions we're taught to ignore. So, what exactly happens when you hug an older man? Let's start with the first and most surprising insight. Truth number 1. The profound hunger for non-sexual intimacy. There's something that happens in the emotional landscape of men as they age that most people never recognize or understand. I remember a conversation with my friend Robert, a 68-year-old retired engineer, who described something that initially surprised me. He said that when his adult daughter hugged him goodbye after a visit, he found himself holding on just a moment longer than necessary, savoring what he called pure affection without agenda. What Robert was describing touches on the first profound truth. Older men experience an intense, often unacknowledged hunger for non-sexual physical intimacy. It's important to understand that this isn't about the kind of romance or desire typically associated with younger love. It's something far deeper and more foundational to the human need for connection. As we age, the longing for affection shifts from a need for passion or physical pleasure to a desire for emotional closeness and reassurance. This type of intimacy offers comfort, security, and a profound sense of being understood, which can be more fulfilling than the romantic love of earlier years. It's the simple act of touch, whether it's a hug, a hand held in silence, or a comforting touch on the arm, that speaks volumes, creating an unspoken bond and fostering a sense of belonging and connection that words alone can't achieve. The ancient philosopher Plato wrote about different forms of love, distinguishing between eros, romantic love, and agape, unconditional, selfless love. What older men crave, often without realizing it, is the physical expression of agape. Touch that says, you matter, you're valued, you're not alone, without any expectation or agenda beyond pure human connection. Robert explained that throughout his younger years, most physical affection was either sexual with his wife or brief masculine hugs with other men that emphasized strength rather than tenderness. But when his daughter, his sister, or even close female friends offered genuine warm hugs, something inside him responded with what he described as emotional thirst being quenched. This hunger becomes more pronounced after 60 because many older men begin to experience what psychologists call touch starvation. If they're widowed, divorced, or in marriages where physical affection has diminished, they may go weeks or months with minimal, meaningful physical contact. The handshake, the pat on the back, the clinical touch of medical professionals, these don't satisfy the deeper need for affectionate human connection. Research from the University of California, Berkeley, shows that non-sexual touch triggers the release of oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, which creates feelings of trust, safety, and emotional well-being. For older men, who may have spent decades minimizing their emotional needs, this hormonal response can be particularly powerful and sometimes overwhelming. When you hug an older man with genuine warmth and presence, you're offering him something that society has trained him to believe he doesn't need or deserve: unconditional physical affection. In that moment, you're not asking him to perform, to provide, to be strong, or to solve problems. You're simply acknowledging his humanity with your presence and touch. The practical implication of understanding this truth is profound. Your hugs, when offered with genuine care and presence, become acts of emotional nourishment. They provide something that older men desperately need, but rarely know how to request: the simple affirmation that they're worthy of affection just for being who they are. If you're wondering how to truly honor this truth, the key lies in being fully present during the moment of physical affection. Instead of rushing through the hug or offering it as a casual gesture, make each embrace intentional and meaningful. Hold them just a little longer than usual, allowing space for the connection to deepen. As you embrace, communicate through your touch that they are valued, not for what they do, but for who they are as a person. Show them, with every gentle squeeze, that their worth is recognized and celebrated, letting the warmth of the moment speak louder than words ever could. This hunger for pure affection naturally leads us to another surprising truth about what happens emotionally when older men receive genuine physical affection. Truth number 2, the unexpected vulnerability that surfaces. Building on this deep hunger for non-sexual intimacy, there's another truth that might surprise you even more. When older men receive genuine, caring physical affection, it often triggers an unexpected wave of vulnerability that can be both beautiful and overwhelming. I've experienced this feeling firsthand. During a family gathering, my granddaughter gave me one of those spontaneous, wholehearted hugs that children offer so naturally. In that moment, I felt a softening inside me, a brief release of the emotional armor I typically carry. Later, I was surprised to find that the hug had brought tears to my eyes. It wasn't just the warmth of her embrace, it was the realization that after years of emotional barriers, I had finally allowed myself to receive love without any reservations. Those few seconds of pure connection reminded me of the deep need for affection we all have, no matter how old we are. What I experienced illustrates the second profound truth. Physical affection can crack open the emotional barriers that older men have spent decades constructing. The vulnerability that surfaces isn't weakness, it's the emergence of authentic emotional truth that's been carefully guarded and protected. The Roman Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. But when it comes to emotional wealth, older men often discover that their carefully constructed emotional minimalism has left them impoverished. A genuine hug can suddenly reveal the depth of their emotional needs and the extent of their emotional isolation. This vulnerability manifests in different ways. Some men, like me, experience unexpected tears or emotional overwhelm. Others find themselves wanting to prolong the physical contact, reluctant to let go of the rare moment of unconditional acceptance. Still others experience what they describe as a melting sensation, a temporary release of the constant tension of maintaining emotional control. What makes this particularly significant is that older men have often spent a lifetime learning to associate vulnerability with danger. In their careers, relationships, and roles as providers and protectors, showing emotional need was frequently seen as a sign of weakness or failure. For decades, they were taught to keep their emotions guarded, to be strong and stoic. But when you hug them with genuine care, you create a momentary sanctuary where that vulnerability can safely surface. In that embrace, they can momentarily let go of the tough exterior they've built over the years, allowing themselves to feel seen, valued, and loved without fear of judgment. It's a rare and deeply healing experience, one that reminds them they're human, deserving of tenderness, and not defined by their ability to always be strong. Neuroscience research from Stanford University shows that meaningful physical contact activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest and restoration. For men who've spent decades in various forms of emotional hypervigilance, this physiological shift can trigger the release of emotions they've been unconsciously suppressing. I describe it as remembering that I am human, not just a role. In that moment of being hugged, I wasn't the strong grandfather or the competent former officer. I was simply a human being receiving care. And that simplicity allowed my authentic emotional self to surface. This vulnerability isn't something to fear or avoid. Rather, it's a sign of emotional health and trust. When an older man allows himself to be vulnerable in response to your affection, he's offering you a rare and precious gift, access to his authentic emotional self, which is often hidden beneath the roles and expectations he's carried for years. His vulnerability is not a weakness, but a deep expression of trust, a moment when he's allowing his guard to drop and letting you see him as he truly is, without the armor he's built over a lifetime. The practical understanding here is that your hugs may trigger emotional responses that seem disproportionate to the gesture itself. This isn't a sign of instability. It's the natural result of offering rare emotional nourishment to someone who's been long experiencing emotional drought. For many older men, physical affection like a hug might be a scarce experience, and when it's given freely, it can evoke deeply felt, often overwhelming emotions. When this happens, it's important to receive their vulnerability with honor and gentleness, understanding that you're witnessing something precious, fragile, and carefully guarded. This type of emotional exchange fosters deeper trust, connection, and an understanding that goes beyond words or actions. How do you think older men respond to physical affection, like hugs, in your experience? Have you seen moments where a simple gesture opened up emotional connections? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. This emergence of vulnerability connects directly to our perhaps most profound truth about what older men feel when you embrace them with genuine care. Let's take a closer look at this.
Truth number 3. The deep longing for acceptance and worth. When we've explored the hunger for non-sexual intimacy and the vulnerability that surfaces, we arrive at perhaps the most profound emotional truth of all. There's something that happens in the heart of an older man when you hug him that speaks to his deepest existential needs. My friend Thomas, a 69-year-old retired teacher, once shared something with me that crystallized this truth beautifully. He said that when his wife hugged him after a particularly difficult day, he felt seen and accepted for who I am, not what I can do. This reveals the third and most profound truth. When you hug an older man with genuine care, you're addressing his deep, often unconscious longing for acceptance and worth that exists independent of his performance, productivity, or usefulness. The existential philosopher Viktor Frankl wrote that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. But what Frankl also understood, though he wrote less about it, is the fundamental human need to feel valued simply for existing, not for achieving. For older men, this need for emotional connection and vulnerability becomes even more pronounced because society has long associated masculinity with specific roles, namely productivity, provision, and performance. These are qualities that, over time, naturally diminish as they enter retirement or experience age-related physical changes. As their careers wind down, physical strength declines, and the role of the primary provider shifts, many men begin to confront deep questions about their fundamental worth. They may feel less valued or struggle to define themselves outside of the achievements and roles that once gave their lives structure and meaning. It's in these moments of transition, when external markers of success fade, that the need for emotional affirmation and intimacy becomes more crucial than ever. Thomas shared that for most of his working life, affection felt like something that had to be earned. It was often tied to his success as a provider, his ability to solve problems, or the strength and competence he exhibited. In other words, love and affection were linked to his accomplishments, leaving him with an underlying question: am I lovable just for being me? However, when his wife hugged him without any conditions, simply because she loved him for who he was, not for what he had achieved or fixed, it deeply moved him. It was in that moment that he realized how essential unconditional love is to his sense of self-worth. This simple act of affection answered the deepest emotional question he had carried for years, and it made him feel truly seen, cherished, and valued, not for his productivity or accomplishments, but for his essence as a person. This longing for unconditional acceptance becomes more pronounced after 60, because older men begin to confront their own mortality and limitations more directly. They may be dealing with health issues, decreased energy, loss of peers, or changes in mental acuity. In a culture that often equates worth with capability, these changes can create profound questions about value and belonging. When you offer a genuine, caring hug to an older man, you're unconsciously answering that fundamental question: yes, you matter. Yes, you're valuable. Yes, you're worthy of love and care, just as you are. This isn't something you're saying with words, it's something you're communicating through presence, touch, and genuine care. The longest-running study on happiness and relationships from the Harvard Study of Adult Development shows that feeling valued and accepted in relationships is one of the strongest predictors of well-being and life satisfaction in older adults. For men specifically, who may have fewer emotionally intimate relationships than women, these moments of unconditional acceptance can be particularly powerful. The acceptance communicated through genuine physical affection also addresses what psychologists call existential loneliness, the isolation that comes from feeling unseen or unknown in your essential self. When Thomas felt seen and accepted for who I am, he was experiencing relief from this deepest form of loneliness. So let me briefly recap what we've discovered. Older men hunger for pure, non-sexual affection that nourishes their emotional souls. They experience unexpected vulnerability when that affection is offered, and they receive profound validation of their fundamental worth as human beings. Together, these three truths reveal that a simple hug can address some of the deepest emotional and existential needs that older men carry. When you hug an older man with genuine presence and care, you're offering him something far more valuable than a simple gesture of affection. You're providing emotional sustenance, creating space for authentic vulnerability, and affirming his fundamental worth as a human being. This understanding can transform not just how you offer physical affection, but how you understand the emotional landscape of every older man in your life. To truly honor the deep emotional needs of older men, consider these steps. First, when offering physical affection, make it a moment of genuine presence. Focus on your intention to provide emotional support, not just physical contact. Second, be patient and allow the moment to unfold without rush or pressure. This creates a space where vulnerability can emerge naturally. Finally, remember that your touch should communicate acceptance and unconditional care. Your hug, done with authenticity and intention, can be more than just a simple gesture. It can be a powerful affirmation of his value and worth as a person, beyond what he has done or accomplished. What other emotions do you think might be behind a man's hug? We will explore the final surprising truth together.
Truth number 4. The awakening of forgotten emotional memory. I discovered this through a conversation with my friend Edmund, a 74-year-old widower who shared something that initially puzzled me. Edmund told me that when his neighbor, Catherine, gave him a comforting hug after his wife's funeral, something unexpected happened. He said, "For just a moment, I felt like I was 7 years old again, being held by my mother after a nightmare." This wasn't regression or confusion. It was the awakening of his earliest, purest understanding of what loving care felt like. This reveals the fourth profound truth. Genuine physical affection can awaken dormant emotional memories from childhood, reconnecting older men with their original, unguarded capacity for receiving love. These aren't just nostalgic feelings, they're neurological pathways to their most authentic emotional selves, pathways that may have been dormant for decades. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung wrote extensively about what he called the collective unconscious and the power of archetypal memories. But there's also what we might call the personal emotional unconscious, the reservoir of our earliest, most pure experiences of being loved and cared for. For most men, these memories become buried under decades of social conditioning that teaches them to be emotionally self-sufficient. Edmund explained that in that moment of being hugged, he wasn't thinking about adult responsibilities, social expectations, or the need to be strong for others. Instead, he was reconnected with the part of himself that knew how to simply receive love without questioning whether he deserved it or worrying about what was expected in return. This awakening of emotional memory does more than just trigger past feelings. It serves a profound psychological function. It reawakens older men to their capacity for emotional openness, reminding them of the time when love was instinctive and freely given, not something that had to be earned or proved. In those moments, they reconnect with the authentic version of themselves that existed before societal pressures and social conditioning shaped their emotional responses. It's a return to a simpler, purer understanding of love, one that isn't tied to performance, expectations, or roles, but to genuine connection and vulnerability. Edmund described the experience as remembering how to be loved. He realized that somewhere along the way, he'd learned to work for love, to earn affection through achievement and service, and to suspect that emotional needs were somehow selfish. But in that moment of pure, caring touch, he remembered his original understanding of love as something that simply was, not something that had to be deserved. This awakening of emotional memory often explains why older men might have such strong, seemingly disproportionate reactions to simple acts of physical affection. They're not just responding to the present moment, they're reconnecting with their deepest, most authentic emotional selves. When you offer an older man a hug with genuine care, you're doing much more than providing comfort in that moment. You're helping him tap into parts of himself that may have long been forgotten or buried beneath the weight of years of life experience. A simple, heartfelt embrace can help him reconnect with his original capacity for emotional openness, which he may have shut off due to life's challenges or societal expectations. To support this, it's essential to be truly present when you hug him. Your touch should carry a sense of patience, respect, and unconditional care, creating a space where he feels safe to let go of the emotional armor he's worn for years. What emotions have you noticed in the older men around you when you offer them a hug? Do you think these acts of affection can help them reconnect with parts of themselves they've long forgotten? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Over time, these moments of connection can help him heal emotional wounds and restore his belief in love, not as an obligation, but as a beautiful, effortless exchange.
As we conclude this exploration of the hidden emotional world that unfolds when you hug an older man, I want you to consider how this wisdom might change your understanding of human connection itself. The 4 truths we've discovered: the hunger for non-sexual intimacy, the vulnerability that surfaces when emotional barriers soften, the deep longing for unconditional acceptance, and the awakening of forgotten emotional memories reveal something profound about the human condition that extends far beyond age or gender. They show us that beneath all our roles, achievements, and social conditioning lies a fundamental need to be seen, valued, and loved simply for who we are. For older men specifically, who've often spent lifetimes learning to minimize these needs, your genuine physical affection becomes something sacred. A moment where they can drop their emotional armor, reconnect with their authentic selves, and simply be human. When you understand this, every hug becomes an opportunity to offer profound healing and connection. The ancient Greek concept of philoxenia literally means love of strangers, but it encompasses something broader: the recognition that every human being carries within them a spark of the divine that deserves honor and care. When you hug an older man with presence and genuine affection, you're practicing this ancient wisdom while potentially awakening something beautiful and long dormant within them. The next time you embrace an older man in your life, your father, your husband, your friend, do so with full presence and genuine care. Notice not just your own experience, but be aware that you may be offering something he rarely receives, a gateway back to his most authentic emotional self. If this wisdom has touched your heart, please subscribe to my channel and share this understanding with others who might benefit from seeing older men through this lens of compassion and understanding. Ring that notification bell, because sometimes the most transformative insights come from recognizing the profound humanity we all share. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video to help spread awareness and foster deeper connections in our relationships. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of human connection.